Israel last week to discuss the possible deployment of troops to Gaza as part of an international security force proposed by U.S. President Donald Trump's Board of Peace to support the fragile ceasefire. It remains unclear what Uganda and Burundi could contribute to the force or what they might receive in return for their participation. If Burundi proceeds with the deployment, the two countries would join Morocco, Kosovo, Kazakhstan and Albania, which have already committed to the proposed international force. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by Dr Oluwole Ojewale, ENACT Regional Organised Crime Observatory Coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies. Now, Dr Ojewale, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good morning from Dakar.
Now, Dr Ojewale, why might these two African countries be willing to deploy troops to such a politically and military sensitive conflict?
Thank you so much, Lulu. I think the starting point is to underscore the fact that I think they want to warm themselves to the heart of Donald Trump, because when you look at how volatile the area is, and what is the strategic contribution that they are probably going to make, and what is also going to be accruing to these countries for participating in that force, it leaves one with serious, deep feelings. The number one thing is that if you look at our home continent of Africa, we have crises all over the places. In fact, Uganda is sitting with worrisome neighbors, whether it is in Sudan, South Sudan, or the DRC that has experienced a perennial crisis over the decades, and that one is also raging in Eastern DRC now. One is bound to ask the question, what has Uganda contributed positively to the crisis on the continent of Africa, whether it is in Cabo Delgado or elsewhere on the continent, even within the perimeter of their own neighbors that are in crisis, that requires the intervention of African countries and even the African Union. Now to jump the Red Sea and to go and be participating in that peacekeeping in quotes, I think it raises a serious red flag about what I would consider as really misappropriation of a priority, or perhaps, of course, every country is going to exist for their national interest. I think maybe there is also some monetary gains that are in this for the two countries. But I can't really see the strategic import of this to the African continent, where the house is burning at home and you are willing to go and quench another fire across the Red Sea.
Are we likely to see other African countries also join the bandwagon?
It's very, very possible because, like I mentioned, some of these countries also have serious diplomatic backlash from the U.S., whether it is in tariff, whether it is in immigration ban and all these things. So I think the idea is actually to warm themselves to the heart of Donald Trump and probably secure some strategic gains in terms of maybe relaxing those rules that are presently constraining them. And to the extent that the money looks, of course, I don't know, but I assume that there's going to be some monetary gains. To the extent to which it becomes alluring, there's a possibility that we're going to see other countries from Africa participating in that. But if I may stretch, because I don't know whether you're going to ask me this question, I think it appears to me like joining other people's war in areas where you do not really have strategic interest. I've read the response from Netanyahu, and the conditions, I think, are steep against the smooth running or smooth expectation that this idea is going to fly. He had said that until Hamas is disarmed, they are not going to withdraw, that Israeli troops are not going to withdraw. That means the ground upon which this altruistic deployment on the part of African countries is going to be landed is already wrecked in confusion, in anarchy, in chaos, in disorder, and that might actually risk the life of the soldiers that are going to be deployed to those to that corridor now.
Now, could African participation in the force create diplomatic complications for the African Union, particularly given the continent's strong political support for the Palestinian cause?
Obviously, I think since this is driven by the United States of America, one will expect that if they are able to talk Netanyahu into it, that is probably going to be is going to create a minimal backlash, if any. But the way the arrangement is framed presently, if Israel is not willing to withdraw their troops, it portends a situation in which even the peace contingent that is going to be deployed, including the African nation, are already set to land in hostile territory, which I think is going to create a lot of diplomatic backlash between Israel and perhaps the African countries that are participating. But if I must raise this red flag that I have mentioned earlier, I think the big concern for me is that in the face of such backlash, they might actually be on their own. I'm using a street lingo that America might. I'm not too sure how much of support they are going to get from America in case this diplomatic row that we mentioned happens in the case that they are deployed.
Dr. Ojewale, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. That's Dr. Oluwole Ojewale, ENACT Regional Organised Crime Observatory Coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies, joining us on the line. It is 12:29 Central African time. On hashtag Africa Update asked today, military officials from Uganda and Burundi have reportedly visited Israel to discuss the possible deployment of troops to Gaza as part of an international security force proposed by U.S. President Donald Trump's Board of Peace to support the fragile ceasefire. Now, we want to know, could African countries joining the international force create problems for the African Union, given its support for Palestine? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +27 83 288 6684. Hashtag Africa Update Us. Our news headlines up next.
Sports on Channel